Military history is filled with stories of great battles, legendary leaders, and innovative weapons. But the unsung hero of warfare has always been logistics. From the ancient empires to modern-day conflicts, the ability to move troops, supplies, and equipment efficiently has been the deciding factor in victory or defeat. Logistics is more than just getting soldiers to the battlefield. It's about maintaining them there, ensuring they have what they need to fight and survive. In this video, we'll dive into how military logistics work, how they've evolved over time, and why they are the backbone of any military campaign. Part 1. What is military logistics? Before we explore the nuts and bolts of military logistics, let's define what it is. Military logistics is the process of planning and executing the movement and support of forces. It involves supplying troops with food, water, ammunition, fuel, medical supplies, and equipment. Basically everything that keeps an army functioning. Logistics ensures that soldiers can operate in distant or hostile environments and that they remain capable of sustained combat over time. At its core, military logistics revolves around three key elements: transportation, supply, and maintenance. Transportation. Moving soldiers and equipment from one place to another. This includes everything from marching on foot, to flying troops and supplies via aircraft, to using ships and trucks for heavy equipment. Supply. Providing troops with the necessary provisions like food, water, fuel, ammunition, and replacement parts. Without a steady stream of supplies, no military force can operate for long. Maintenance. Keeping vehicles, weapons, and equipment in working order. In modern warfare, vehicles, weapon systems, and electronics are incredibly complex and require constant upkeep. In the military, logistics is often referred to as the tail that supports the teeth, the combat forces. Without that tail, the teeth would quickly become useless. No matter how well trained or well armed, soldiers without food, ammunition, or transportation won't be able to fight. Part 2. The origins of military logistics. The concept of logistics in warfare isn't new. Ancient armies relied on logistics to some extent, but it was often rudimentary. In the days of Alexander the Great or the Roman Empire, armies lived off the land, foraging for food as they went. This made military campaigns heavily dependent on the availability of local resources. However, as armies grew in size and conflicts became more complex, so too did the need for structured logistics. Ancient armies, the Romans were among the first to recognize the importance of logistics. Their legions required a constant supply of food, water, and equipment to maintain their strength, especially when campaigning far from home. Roman military planners developed a supply system that included depots along their vast network of roads, ensuring that soldiers had access to supplies wherever they marched. They also built roads that allowed for the rapid movement of troops and materials, which greatly enhanced their ability to wage war on multiple fronts. The Roman legions carried their own equipment, but as campaigns grew longer and more complex, they began to rely on supply chains for provisions and replacement gear. This ensured that Roman soldiers were always well equipped, even in distant territories. The Mongols, another example of early military logistics, is the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan. The Mongols were known for their incredible mobility and the ability to conduct long-range campaigns. Their armies could travel vast distances quickly, thanks to their efficient logistics. They utilized a relay system of horses, allowing messengers to cover hundreds of miles in a single day. They also employed a flexible supply system, relying on herds of animals and local resources, enabling them to sustain their forces without being bogged down by massive supply trains. Part 3. Logistics in the Napoleonic Era. Fast forward to the Napoleonic Wars, and we see logistics playing a pivotal role in warfare. Napoleon Bonaparte is often regarded as a military genius, but his success was not just a result of brilliant tactics and strategy. It was also due to his attention to logistics. Napoleon's armies operated on a scale never seen before, with hundreds of thousands of troops spread across Europe. This presented enormous logistical challenges. Napoleon developed a system known as living off the land, where his armies would requisition food and supplies from local populations. This reduced the need for large supply trains and allowed his forces to move quickly. However, this system had its limits. In 1812, during his ill-fated invasion of Russia, Napoleon's logistics broke down. His army could not sustain itself over the long distances and harsh conditions of the Russian winter. The lack of food, fodder for horses, and warm clothing led to the collapse of his forces, and fewer than 10% of his army returned home. This failure underscored the importance of logistics in warfare. No matter how powerful an army, without proper supplies and transportation, it will fail. Part 4. The Industrial Revolution and Modern Military Logistics. The Industrial Revolution brought about dramatic changes in warfare, particularly in logistics. The introduction of railways, steamships, and later motorized vehicles revolutionized the way armies moved and were supplied. Suddenly, it was possible to transport vast quantities of troops and supplies over long distances in a fraction of the time it had previously taken. Railroads in the American Civil War, one of the first major conflicts to see the impact of industrial logistics, was the American Civil War. Railroads played a crucial role in the movement of troops and supplies. The Union Army in particular utilized its superior rail network to keep its forces supplied. This allowed Union generals to operate far from their base of supply, knowing that reinforcements and provisions could be delivered quickly by rail. The Confederacy, on the other hand, suffered from a lack of industrial infrastructure. Its limited rail network struggled to keep up with the demands of war, and Confederate forces often faced shortages of food, ammunition, and medical supplies. World War I and the logistics of trench warfare. World War I introduced a new level of complexity to military logistics. The war's static nature, with troops dug into trenches for years at a time, placed enormous strain on supply lines. Soldiers in the trenches needed constant resupply of food, ammunition, and medical care, as well as new equipment to replace what was lost or damaged in battle. The use of motorized vehicles, such as trucks, allowed for greater flexibility in transporting supplies to the front lines. However, the sheer scale of the war meant that logistics became a central concern for both sides. Entire armies depended on well-maintained supply lines, and any disruption, such as attacks on supply convoys, could cripple a fighting force. World War II and the global scale of logistics. World War II took military logistics to a whole new level. The global nature of the conflict meant that armies had to operate across vast distances, from the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of the Pacific. This required an unprecedented level of coordination and planning. In Europe, the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944 was one of the largest logistical operations in history. The Allies had to transport millions of troops, vehicles, and supplies across the English Channel and then sustain them in combat for months. The success of the Normandy landings wasn't just a matter of military might. It was the result of meticulous logistical planning. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union's ability to keep its forces supplied, despite the destruction of much of its industrial base by the invading German army, was a key factor in its eventual victory. The Soviet use of railroads and trucks to move troops and supplies across the vast expanse of the Soviet Union was a logistical triumph. In the Pacific, the United States faced the challenge of supplying its forces across thousands of miles of ocean. The US Navy developed an extensive system of supply ships, mobile repair units, and floating bases to keep its forces supplied as they island hopped across the Pacific. Part 5. Modern military logistics. In the modern era, military logistics has become even more complex. Advances in technology have made it possible to move and supply troops faster and more efficiently than ever before, but the challenges have also increased. Modern military forces are highly mechanized and rely on a constant supply of fuel, ammunition, and spare parts to function. Airlift and sealift. One of the biggest advancements in modern military logistics is the use of airlift and sealift capabilities. Military transport aircraft like the C-130 Hercules and C-17 Globemaster can quickly move troops and supplies to remote or hostile locations. This allows for rapid deployment of forces and the ability to sustain them in combat for extended periods. Similarly, naval logistics play a crucial role in supporting military operations. Ships like the US Navy's military sealift command vessels are used to transport fuel, ammunition, and supplies to deployed forces around the world. These ships act as floating supply depots, ensuring that naval and land forces can operate far from home bases for extended periods. Technology and automation technology has revolutionized military logistics in recent years. GPS and satellite communication systems allow for real-time tracking of supplies and vehicles, ensuring that commanders know exactly where their resources are at all times. Automated systems are also being used to streamline the supply process, reducing the manpower required to manage logistics. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, or drones are increasingly being used for resupply missions. Drones can deliver medical supplies, ammunition, or food to troops in remote or dangerous locations without risking human lives. This is especially important in modern asymmetric warfare, where traditional supply convoys may be vulnerable to ambush or attack. Cybersecurity and supply chain vulnerabilities. As military logistics become more reliant on digital systems, cybersecurity has become a major concern. An enemy could potentially disrupt a military's supply chain by hacking into logistics networks or using cyber attacks to disable communication systems. Protecting these systems from cyber threats is now a critical part of modern military logistics. In addition, the global nature of modern supply chains has introduced new vulnerabilities. Many military components are manufactured in different parts of the world, and disruptions to global trade, whether from political instability, natural disasters, or pandemics, can affect a military's ability to source critical materials. Part 6. The future of military logistics. Looking to the future, military logistics will continue to evolve alongside new technologies and changing warfare strategies. As the world becomes more interconnected, logistics will be more important than ever. Artificial intelligence and predictive analytics. Artificial intelligence, AI, and predictive analytics are already being used to improve military logistics. AI can analyze vast amounts of data to predict when equipment will need maintenance or when supply shortages might occur. This allows military planners to anticipate problems before they arise and ensure that troops are always fully equipped. Predictive analytics can also be used to optimize supply routes, reducing the time and resources required to deliver goods to the front lines. This is especially important in modern conflicts, where the speed of resupply can make the difference between victory and defeat. Autonomous vehicles and robotics. The development of autonomous vehicles and robotics will also play a major role in the future of military logistics. Autonomous trucks and drones can be used to transport supplies to the battlefield without the need for human drivers, reducing the risk to military personnel. Robotics can also be used in warehouses and supply depots to manage inventory and load supplies onto vehicles more efficiently. 3D printing and on-demand manufacturing. One of the most exciting developments in military logistics is the potential for 3D printing and on-demand manufacturing. In the future, military units may be able to produce spare parts, weapons, and even food in the field using 3D printers. This would reduce the need for large supply convoys and allow troops to be more self-sufficient, particularly in remote or hostile environments. Conclusion: military logistics is the backbone of warfare. It's not as glamorous as the frontline combat, but without it, no army can function. From the Roman legions to modern mechanized forces, logistics has been the determining factor in countless battles and campaigns. As technology continues to evolve, logistics will remain at the heart of military operations, ensuring that armies can move, fight, and win. In future conflicts, the ability to adapt logistics to new technologies and changing warfare environments will be key to maintaining military effectiveness. While the tools and methods may change, the fundamental importance of logistics will remain constant. It is, and always will be, the backbone of warfare.